I'd like to call the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission meeting together at 10 a.m., January 13th, 2010. Roll call, Brett.
Commissioner Augusta?
Present.
Commissioner Brown?
Present.
Commissioner Goepel?
Present.
Commissioner Greer?
Present.
Commissioner Harris? Present. Vice Chairman Vieira?
Present.
Chairman Christ? We have a quorum.
Thank you. If I could ask Commissioner Augusta to lead us in the pledge. Appreciate that.
Stand and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time I'd like to take just a brief moment to welcome our newest commissioner, Concepcion Harris, who I understand was sworn in at the council meeting last night. So welcome, and my understanding is that you'll be leading us in the invocation this morning.
I'd like to just say thank you for having me come on board, and I'm on staff at Central Christian Church, and my role specifically here is to talk about neighborhood impact and how it is that we can serve the community of the city of Lancaster just a little bit better. So thank you for having me here. And if we could stand, I'll go ahead and do the invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this new year and for what it is that you have designated for this commission to do. I just ask that you would give us wisdom, direction, guidance, and discernment as we try to carry out our duties. And I ask this, Lord, in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Thank you. No presentations, it appears, this morning at this point. Public business from the floor, agendized items.
We have no speaker cards.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Commissioners, if you'd had a chance to take a look at the minutes, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
I move we approve the minutes from the December 9 meeting. Second.
Discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, vote. And Britt, I'm assuming again I'm up to our right here. We either push yes, no.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, that has passed. On to staff presentations, update reports. Our first one here is the Domestic Violence Forensic Services. I had the opportunity to meet with Mary Rena at a meeting recently, and we got to talking, and she's been invited today. Just a little bit about Mary. She is the director of Sexual Assault Response Team, the SART team at the hospital. So welcome, Mary.
First of all, thank you for inviting me, and especially Dr. Vieira. What I'm trying to do, just a brief history, for over 30 years, AV Hospital has supported victims of sexual assault through their advocacy program, which left a couple years ago to Valley Oasis. But the hospital still supports the sexual assault response team. And the purpose of that team is to collect evidence and document findings on victims of sexual assault. And obviously, we're pretty busy. I know this commission is aware of the crime stats in the Valley, and between the sexual assaults and the domestic violence cases, this community ranks the highest in LA County. So a couple years ago, the center was awarded a forensic camera and software package that has helped us, aided us in our documentation of injuries. And with training, our nurses have been participating in the prosecution, the successful prosecution of multiple cases. And I just put a couple letters of support that I brought with me, one from the district attorney's office and also one from the crime lab that just speaks to the evidence that we collect. What I'm trying to do is put together a program that would also make our services available to victims of domestic violence, including the ability to respond to them mobily, like if the patient's unwilling to come forward from their home to the busy emergency room, that the nurses could actually go to them with the forensic camera, et cetera. I did receive a grant from Verizon that is supporting the initial training and another forensic camera setup for us, which was significant, like $42,000. And I'm also trying to seek other funding sources. And that's why I just thought this was the perfect opportunity to try to share with you what I was trying to do. And I put together a concept paper that I put for the state, or part of it for the state, for grants as well. And I just thought this would be the perfect opportunity to present this idea in front of some people that could possibly aid me in my search. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I mean, this is just a small part of the process, but it does and can make a huge difference. And I know the DV detectives that I've spoken with said that if we could go to the victims ourselves, it may aid in their ability to participate further. So I did have a case involving a victim in Lancaster where she recanted, of course, like a lot of them do. And because of the documentation and the photographs that we took, the judge proceeded and the suspect was convicted. So, you know, it does have some value. I don't know if I can say anything else.
Any questions from commissioners?
I just have one. You say we have the highest incidence of domestic violence in LA County in this area?
The reports, yes.
Okay, as far as the number of reports, any idea how many incidents or reports like this are taken on an annual basis?
I think in the thousands from when I looked on the LA County Crime Lab. I mean, the LA County website, you know, where they have the statistics for the year. And I know the sexual assaults are up there. The combo of Lancaster and Palmdale outweigh all of the other areas. So the numbers, the reports are high. I don't know specifically the numbers. I have a PowerPoint, but I didn't bring it today.
Okay. And then you mentioned you've had some assistance, I guess, from Verizon through a grant
Yes.
to help you. So are you approaching other corporate donors possibly for?
Yes, I'm writing a grant right now for Kaiser, and I wrote one for Blue Cross because they're both interested in helping nonprofits, obviously. And like I said, the hospital has supported it. The good news is everything is really in place. All I really need is some money to support another staff person because the hospital gives us the office. We have all the equipment. I mean, really, everything is there. And I have approached Mr. Antonovich's office, and Norm is helping me as well. And besides the grants in the county, and I've attempted to meet with both mayors just to kind of let them know what I was trying to do. So I'm just doing what I can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, we do get reimbursed from the county for our exams that we do on sexual assault patients. But we have no way of getting reimbursed for if we would participate in the DV. So I just appreciate it if you just take time in your busy lives to look over the paper just so you have some idea of what I'm trying to do. And if anybody has any advice, maybe Dr. Vieira could tell me.
Well, again, Mary, thank you for coming today.
Okay,
Thank you for the
thank
work.
you.
Thank you for the work that you do along
Thank
these
you.
lines. And I think all of us are in arenas, if you will, that, you know, see the need for this and can talk to others as well. Of course, we don't have a budget from which to work
Right.
from, but, you know, we do speak with others. So again, thank you, and
Okay.
nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Vice Chair, if I may ask a question of
Sure,
Mary?
absolutely.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
I'm over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, it's okay. Do you have any brochures? Because we have, I'm sure you know, the Neighborhood Watch and Business Watch programs, and domestic violence has been one of our concerns over the last several months. So I'd like to talk to you later, but if you have any brochures or information that we can share with the public, that
Sure.
would be great.
Yes, I can bring them over.
Okay,
I'll leave
great.
this with you.
Okay, great. Yes.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Vice
you.
Chair, I might have something to add for her, too. I mean, I've dealt with Mary from when she first started over there. But we also wrote a concept letter for the sexual assault, domestic violence, so that we will have an advocate at the station like we do with domestic violence. So I think you and I probably need to sit down and maybe partner on that. The station, we've looked at all that, and every year, I mean, it's one of the most important things that we look at is domestic violence and sexual assault. I don't know if the commission's aware, but we have a grant that pays for a dedicated domestic violence investigator. It's been in place for 4 years now. Last year, we added a permanent advocate that works out of the station. She's actually a Valley Oasis employee that's paid for by the grant and by the city. The city pays a match, but that is a full-time advocate that is there, and 100% of domestic violence victims receive immediate advocacy. And we'd like to move that forward to the sexual assault also. We'd like to have a dedicated investigator and a dedicated advocate for the sexual assault. The other thing that we're doing is we've looked and we noted that in the last year, the sexual assaults that we've had, a fair part of them have been alcohol-related. They're between the ages of 17 and 26, and we think that we've started an educational process, and we're going to go into the schools and through Neighborhood Watch and through other media sources, but educate our young men and young women on the crime of rape and where these assaults are occurring, and see if we can impact it that way. So we also probably could partner in on that too.
Okay, I was going to say, I work closely with Valley Oasis, their SARS program, of course, and we put together a presentation and, hit some of the schools last year, and they're doing it again. So, yeah, I think the more education, obviously.
Well, if you're aware of the Valley Oasis, Teresa Dawson, Sergeant Teresa Dawson, she's gonna head up the program for us and get it on the right track, and then we will take over. But she's the point person that's going to put that educational program together for us.
Yeah, I just talked to her yesterday, and
Great.
I'm doing a domestic violence training for nurses at the hospital in February, and she's going to be one of the speakers. So
Outstanding.
that's cool. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Sounds like we're connecting the dots. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, our next report, Services Cities Grant Application Update. Mr. Mark Blazigan. I don't see Mark. Is there anybody else that's going to be covering for Mark, or you want to come back to that?
Yeah, Mark apologizes for he had a scheduling conflict, but he has been working on this directly, and I think he'd probably be the most appropriate to report. So,
Okay, so
we'll put it off to the next meeting.
one? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on, monthly crime statistics. Mr. Jim Cobalt, Senior Criminal Justice Analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully we'll have better luck this month than we had last month. First information I'd like to run through with you is just where we've been at since December 6th through January 2nd. We can see that this is a summary week by week of the Part 1 criminal activity or reported crimes in the city of Lancaster. Basically, they're holding pretty steady between 63 and 76 Part 1 crimes per week. The unique report numbers issued, which is the number across the bottom, shows a little bit of a spike in activity in week 51, which was the 13th to the 19th. Everything else is pretty much what was interesting was week 52 only had 412 unique reports issued, and that was kind of interesting. As we look at the week by week, the most active reporting districts in the city, we can see that 1135 and 1137 and 1121 are back on our radar screen. From week to week, you can see the distribution there. The top district usually runs around anywhere from in a range of 13 to 15 Part 1 crimes, while the districts that are at the lower end of it for the top three range from 7 to 10. To summarize it, what we can see is over the collection period, the most active reporting districts by the data that the preliminary data that was there, 1126 and 1135 both tied at 47 events. 1121 had 40, 1137 had 36. So we come back to some of the reporting districts that are most problematic for us at this point are still 1135, 1137, and 1121. As we look at the comparison grant or comparison graph for that time period by each individual Part 1 crime category, we see one of the things that we can see here on the graph is this red line represents the frequency of occurrence by week. Now, what you have to understand about this graph is we are always in week 52 when we look at this graph. That was the most recent week. This is the same time period last year. So what we're looking at is the 52 weeks for homicide. Now, again, what we counted these were a little different than the way that they collect UCR in that we are only counting the number of events, not the number of victims for the violent crimes. So that's where our numbers sometimes differ from the UCR just a little bit. Now, one of the baselines that you can see, baseline is 0.21. Now, that's going back to 1997. I calculated what our weekly baseline is for each crime category, and that is basically 0.21 homicides per week. So that blue line here represents our baseline, and of course the goal is to always stay below the baseline if you want to bring your Part 1 crime rate down. You can see this black line represents the linear analysis of the frequency, which shows us how the trend is going. Is the crime trending up or is the crime trending down? You can see in week, or as of this week, compared to the last 52 weeks, homicide is trending down. As we look at forcible rape, it's essentially flat. However, we do see a little upward movement here. When we look at robbery, robbery is sitting right on about our baseline. So we can see right here that you have an overlap of the black linear line and the baseline. For aggravated assault, you can see a nice steady decline for the trend. For burglary, you can see also at this point a nice steady decline. Now that's a real improvement because when we were back in weeks 45 through about 47, we were running pretty flat. You can now see a steep decline in that area. As far as larceny goes, this was an area that we'd made quite a bit of progress in, or the Sheriff's Department had. We can see the trend line is moving up slightly in the baseline. You can see it's still well below the baseline, but the statistical trend is moving up slightly. Auto theft is another highlight. We can see auto theft, the trend line is well below the baseline, and we continue to stay on the whole well below the baseline compared to the last or to what our baseline is. Arson is essentially the same way. You can see the baseline here, and the trend line is well below the baseline. As we look at the individual areas, this is the map that's in front of you was drawn from. Now, one of the things that came up is the question about domestic violence. In looking just cursorily at their data from week to week, they run about 10 to 15 events of domestic violence per week on average. So that's kind of an estimate for us to work with. Again, I didn't calculate a baseline for that, but that just kind of gives us a rough working idea. One of the things that I keep talking about is 1121. This is the area of 1121 during the time period of measurement since our last Criminal Justice Commission meeting. And this is what has essentially happened there. And you can look at to know what each individual icon stands for. You can translate that through the legend on your sheet that's in front of you. I don't believe that the sheet has the green triangle. The green triangle represents the incidence of domestic violence. This is 1135, and you can see the representation there as well. And 1137. And at this point, I'd ask if there are any questions.
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Next, we have arrest stats, Sergeant Willoughby.
It's going to be one of those days.
It seems like you guys are taking turns.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say it.
Okay. For our new commissioner, what we're doing here is basically bi-monthly we have a meeting at the station to discuss the current crime trends with some of our key players, our sergeants and lieutenants, and with the goal of examining these current crime trends with as real-time information as we can get to gain input so that we can direct our resources effectively to go after specific trends. When we were having the problem with the daytime burglaries, we got together and we discussed that in the meeting, and some of our various teams and our patrol folks started to concentrate on that problem. And very quickly, we saw an effect out in the field where we were taking the right bad guys to jail. At the end of that meeting, it became useful for us to just kind of get a comparative analysis as to how we stand on our arrests from week to week type of thing. So that's what we're going to look at here. These are our arrest stats for the last 2 weeks of 2009. And as Jim was giving his presentation just now, I was kind of remembering the numbers that I saw for this, and a few of them correlate. You know, he was saying that we're trending down in a few of these Part 1 crime areas, and interestingly enough, our arrests are starting to taper off in those same areas. Maybe there's not as many of those kinds of bad guys out there anymore, and that's always a good thing. But for our last 2 weeks, we're comparing that to the first 2 weeks of the month. So for the 2-week period ending 12/31, in the light blue, we can see that our grand theft, larceny, robbery, and aggravated assault arrests were down, but that burglary arrest rate was up. We arrested more burglars for that week. We actually arrested fewer people for Part 1 crimes towards the end of the month than we did at the beginning of the month. Going into our Part 2 crimes, we made a few more arrests there. Most noticeably, it looks like we picked up on our vehicle laws and some warrants, some miscellaneous things, but it's still fairly consistent. You know, again, we've been trying to stress to everybody to be out there looking for those narco arrests. We're up from where we were in the last few months, but we're kind of holding steady at the moment. Unfortunately, we didn't end up being the big dog when we compare ourselves to the rest of the county in a couple of areas here. Century beat us out on the Part 2 arrests. Palmdale had a good end of the year. They beat us on the Part 1. A couple other stations were right neck and neck with us on the Part 1 crimes. But again, with the exception of Crescenta Valley Station, these are the Sheriff's Department's hot stations. These are the places where it's always traditionally been the jumping stations. Palmdale and Lancaster, as you can see, are holding their own with these legendary stations throughout the department. We're always happy to see that. Unfortunately, for as long as we've been doing this, up until recently that the crime rate started to drop, we've always been the big dog on arrest. But if it means a lower crime rate, we don't mind not being the big dog anymore. When we look at ourselves compared over the last 2-year period, the light green line represents where we were on arrests on a month-by-month basis in 2008. The red line is 2009. And we're starting to slow down a little bit. It's actually been the slowest, December was the slowest month for arrests that we've had overall probably in 2 years. But again, with Jim's statistics that the crime rate's dropping, maybe some of these guys are getting the message of our former mayor that they need to change their area code. So that's pretty much what we have going on that.
I'd like to add a comment here real quickly. Mike has just done a wonderful job for us putting together our statistics and our presentation for our biweekly crime trend meetings over there at the station. He's just done a terrific job, and it's his work that really makes that crime trends meeting work over there at the station. If you're wondering a little bit about why we would make a presentation on arrest statistics, it's still our philosophy over there at Lancaster Station that law enforcement is a complex job in today's society, and there are many aspects of it, including work to try and intervene in criminal activity, and we need programs such as VITA to try and give our youngsters a chance out there to intervene in the progression of their criminal activities. But still, in our minds, one of the most important things we do in law enforcement, and one indicator of how dedicated and how hard our deputies are working is arrests. And we feel that is probably the main activity that our deputies are doing out in the streets that contribute to true public safety. So we watch that very, very closely, and we use it as a sort of a marker as to how successful and how hard we're working out there in the field. So that's why we wanted to make this presentation. And I want to thank Mike again for all his hard work.
Questions?
Yeah, I got one. Excuse me. Do you guys do any kind of statistics on parolees being arrested?
That's not something that we usually look at during our crime trends meetings. I'm sure that Lieutenant Downton and the captain could probably speak to that a little bit better than I could, because I don't personally track those.
Okay. Is there any urgency as far as parolees being a major problem in the community?
Well, I mean, traditionally, we've found that, with recidivism rates, they're through the roof. So the more parolees you have in your community, It's just simple math. If they are going to, if you have a recidivism rate of, let's say 50%, and you move 100 people in here, half of them are going to continue to offend. If you move 1,000 of them in here, 500 are going to continue to offend. So it's just basic math that it's a detriment to the community until we can rehabilitate people at 100% rate. I don't know of a country that has that going on. They're going to be a problem, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you.
I can also address that a little bit. I think, obviously, with state budget problems and, 30 or 40,000 inmates scheduled to be released over the next couple years, before they've done their full sentences, that's going to become a real issue, I think, in our community and every other community, really, around the state. So we are going to need to incorporate that into our crime trends meetings and become, put together some sort of monitoring system to see, how we're progressing in that and what we're doing in that area. It's got to be something that we analyze. So we're going to incorporate that into our crime trends meetings.
If I might add, I can tell you that, I don't have the overall numbers for the whole station, but for a small team of the Berg team, for the arrests that we've made, the felony arrests, 25% of them were parolees. So out of all the arrests in 2009 that the Berg team arrested, 25% of them were parolees. So I can tell you that.
And I can also add to that we're taking a proactive approach to the impending influx of parolees that it looks like we're going to be getting. We're already setting our teams up. We've got one of our teams already set up, and they're looking at that, and they're working with parole, and we're already starting to do a stepped-up effort to stay on top of these people and just let them know that we're here and we're watching.
Okay. Just so the commission, everybody knows that our department, the parole department, has come out with their preliminary estimates of what is going to happen with the summary parole. It's going to start January 25th of this year, and approximately 500 individuals on parole right now will be on summary parole effective next month, which means they will not have any conditions of parole, and they will basically be off parole. They will have search rights by the law enforcement as to they will be able to search them for new criminal activity, not for any parole violations. They cannot be revoked at all.
I have a question.
Yes.
Commissioner Capel. My question is that number 500, is that just in this community?
That is. But we have approximately 2,500 parolees in our community, and approximately 500, that's their estimation right now, is 500 parolees.
I'd just like to add one thing to this. One of the things that we want to take into consideration on this is some of the parolees will reoffend and some of them won't. But eventually your parolees will get off parole, and they, at that point, become convicted felons. And one of the things that we don't currently track in the city, and I'm not sure what the legalese is of it, but tracking convicted felons after they're off parole can have some interesting conclusions once you get the data assembled and everything else. So one of the things that I would add to the discussion is not just people on parole and people on probation, but also people who are convicted felons living in your community. Add to that recidivism rate, and that currently is not something that's being tracked.
Well, I can add to that. I will tell you that, you can watch what happens over in our superior courts, and anybody, without exception, well, there are exceptions, murders, some of the very, very violent crimes, but without exception, if you go to state prison, you are already a convicted felon. They don't send first-time, felon convictions to state prison. So, it's a fairly easy way to track that is, I know how the courts work, and a first-time felon normally does not see state prison time.
Just another comment on this too, as well as far as the non-revocable parole. In a discussion with Mr. Cooley last week, the issue being that our district attorney for our county, before they recommend state prison time for an offense, there is some significant considerations to past history, the type of crimes they've been involved in, and a process that's put in place before that recommendation's made. So as far as the kind of the conditions of this non-revocable parole considered a low-level offender, and there's a contradiction with low-level offender in state prison, at least in our county, as things occur. The other part of this is the fact is, by definition, it's not parole. Parole is something that is an extension of incarceration with conditions for your behavior, that if you violate those conditions, you go back to prison, because technically you're still a ward of the state and have a responsibility to the state of California. In this condition, it's not, I don't even know how you can call it parole, because by definition it's not parole. It's simply a release from prison.
So is there a way that we can track this over the next year or so we can prove it doesn't work?
I think we've been having some serious discussions on how to work that. In the near future, we're going to have the undersecretary from the Department of Corrections is going to be coming down to meet with us here at the City of Lancaster to discuss some issues that are occurring with our local parole office and the administration of that office, and this will be a topic of discussion on how we can work in partnership with them to at least have notification of the release and that these individuals are in our area.
Yeah, that is a concern too, that on summary parole, they do not even have to check in with the parole office. We will not know that they're in our community.
Commissioner Goepel, you know probably better than most that we're not going to do anything about our crime problem in the Antelope Valley without a true partnership with all law enforcement. That means parole, probation, the courts, everybody. We have to be a total team going in the same direction. And hopefully with this meeting coming up, we will be able to solidify some of that teamwork.
I concur.
Thank you very much. Our concluding report on neighborhood impact program from Commissioner Harris.
Good morning, everyone. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be talking about the neighborhood impact, but I will keep my comments brief. And just to reiterate, that neighborhood impact is a collaboration of churches that are here to serve the community of Lancaster. And we're here specifically to serve the spiritual, emotional, and physical needs of the people in the best way that we possibly can. One of the things that we value is the partnership that we have with the City of Lancaster, helping us to find a home in the respective neighborhoods that we've adopted, and having that leasing agreement with them. As of right now, we are in the area surrounding Paiute Middle School. We are in the Trend area. We are going into the Mariposa area and also the Desert View area. For the Martin Luther King Workday, one of the things that we will be doing together with Grace Chapel, Henry Hearns Church, A.B. Christian Center, Desert Vineyard, we are going to be going into the area that surrounds Joshua School, and we'll be cleaning up that area on Saturday with approximately 500 volunteers. And the other thing that we'll be doing is painting the bathrooms, 6 bathrooms at Parkview School that are in horrible condition. Last year what we did is, with approximately 700 volunteers on Martin Luther King Workday, we painted the trim at El Dorado School, we painted a house, and then also painted an entire playground at Linda Verde School. And so it's just our pleasure to be able to help the community. I have a a letter here from the principal at El Dorado School, who sent it last year, because the other thing that we did there at the school was to help them with their library. And so 300 new books were put into circulation. New plants were added. There was a new mascot that was added to the marquee in front of the school. And it says here that as a result of the work by all of the volunteers like you, our campus not only received new paint, but your act of kindness and support enabled us to offer the students a more attractive and inviting educational environment, and at the same time show them the power of teamwork and community. And I just can't think of a better thing that we could be doing. I also received a letter from Chris Johnson that was sent to him by the assistant vice principal at Paiute Middle School, and it says, I was fortunate enough to have a little time to reflect and ponder all of the wonderful things with which Paiute Middle School has been blessed. Your church family came to mind. We're fortunate to have such a wonderful group of people who have taken the time to reach out to our community and students. I applaud you and your neighborhood staff for your continued support and contribution to this small but very important citizenry. You should know that you're making a huge difference in the lives of these students. Our students know that there is a safe place in the neighborhood where they can just be kids. The kindness and generosity of your church is not going to notice. Thank you for keeping the dream alive and reaching out to our future firefighters, nurses, doctors, principals, and pastors. So that's kind of what we try to do. And in the Trend area, what we've done recently is we opened up the neighborhood community house in November and have begun a series of kids clubs for the kids, elementary, junior, and high school. They can have a place they can come and hang out. They can have, a snack. And the other thing that we did was that we had a Christmas store where the people in the community could come and they could buy gifts for the kids at $3 each, even though they were valued for a lot more. And they were also able to, we had things for the kids to do. We had cookies that they could decorate, just a way of showing God's love in a practical way. That's about the best way that I can explain it. We also, during Christmas vacation, did a soup and sandwich outreach at the house, and provided soup and sandwiches for anybody who wanted to come by. The 3 Tuesdays when the kids were on vacation. So that's what we're about.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? No? Well, thank you, Commissioner Harris, and again, welcome. Move on to public business from the floor, non-agendized items.
We have no speaker cards.
Okay. That is pretty much it on the agenda, other than if there's any closing comments from any of the commissioners at all today.
Maybe a question. When I listened to Jim Cobalt's statistics and Sergeant Willoughby about the arrest statistics, in the overhead map that we had showing, I guess it's 1121, because if I put the glasses on I can tell you, 1121 that has a lot of icons in it. My question is to Shelley. I know you've done terrific with the neighborhood watch programs. This area, since it seems to have so much activity in it, my question is, what level of participation are we getting in that particular, when I say neighborhood, from, I guess, about the freeway or 20th West all the way over to Sierra Highway, H to I? I know it's one of the older areas in town, and I certainly know it's not for lack of law enforcement presence there, because you see radio cars all the time. So how about the
I don't have an exact number for you, but I can get that to you later today. We continue to grow with Neighborhood Watch and Business Watch, so we're currently at 192 Neighborhood Watch groups and 170 Business Watch. But I will tell you that unfortunately we're not getting the participation that we want in the more crime-ridden areas. So what one of our goals is this year is to try and get, with partnering with Lieutenant Doughton and some of the teams at the station, we want to try and get into those neighborhoods and see if we can get better participation. When at least a year or so ago, it's probably been longer now, when we had a town hall meeting in Trend we sent out approximately 25 interest packets to people that did approach us at the town hall. And we've only had 2 meetings in Trend, and it's not a set amount. You know, what we like to do with Neighborhood Watch is obviously go street by street, but in Trend, it was more of individuals throughout that housing tract. So it is something we're working on, but I have to email the commission later today about something else, so I'll get that number to you for that reporting district.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from commissioners? Okay.
Vice Chairman, I have 2 items before you close.
Okay.
Okay. I'll hand it out after the meeting, but last week at our agenda meeting with Chairman Christ, he had asked about the city's Channel 28 schedule, and I know you're aware that Public Safety has several of our community presentations that replay the council meetings, these meetings, and other information. So I'll give that to you at the end of the meeting, and then I'll follow up this afternoon with a different format. This was given to me by Communications, but I'm going to change it a little bit. And then the other announcement is Lancaster and Palmdale stations have announced their next community academy, so if you're interested or you'd like to help spread the word, it'll be from February 23rd through May 4th. And Deputy Montes de Oca gave me an application, so if you're interested, I can get a copy to you.
That'd be
That's
great.
all.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions or comments, we stand adjourned, and our next meeting is on the 10th of February, 10 a.m. Thank you.